Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Amara and I am a yoga teacher and soul coach based in Dubai, and I am so happy you are here. Today we are diving into a video all around advice for new yoga teachers, advice for yoga teachers who are ready to start taking this side of their practice and career more seriously, and just general advice for anyone who is a yoga teacher and is looking for guidance. I actually put a few question boxes up on my Instagram for this, so all of your questions have come in and I'm sure these will apply to lots of people as well. So we have got an awful lot of questions to get through. So with that being said, feel free to grab yourself a cup of tea, get nice and comfy, maybe a notebook, but we'll see. If you want to take a note, you can take notes. But otherwise, let's dive straight into the video. Okay guys, let's dive straight in. I am so excited to be diving into this video because I think this is one of the most common questions I get asked. If you are new here, I am a full-time yoga teacher and I now spend my time teaching in-person classes. I also have an online membership and I also teach in-person yoga teacher training courses, as well as having a coaching program of my own which allows me to teach yoga off of the mat as well and really show people how to bring these yogic practices into their life. And so I am really excited to be covering this topic of advice for new yoga teachers because I just really feel like there is so much here that I offer to my sort of in-person students that we don't really get to see online, and that is something that I'm really focusing on at the moment, is trying to communicate online in the same way I do in person. So hence why we are here, and as I said, I really feel like this is a topic I can chat so much about. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. A little bit about my story in becoming a yoga teacher was that when I was 22, I was working as a school teacher based in the UK, and I was so unbelievably miserable. I was battling with an eating disorder. I was in a constant cycle of perfectionism and trying to always be better. I was under a lot of pressure within my job, and it took me to the stage where I got really unwell and I was burnt out. I was always anxious. I was living in constant fight or flight, and everything else was just a sort of side effect of the fact that I was living in this constant fight or flight mode. And when I was sort of in that state, the pandemic hit and things happened, and I had a moment to pause when I suddenly just felt so drawn to do my yoga teacher training. So at the age of 23, I spent what very little life savings I had, very little, on my deposit for my yoga teacher training. And then I was working full-time still, so I did my yoga teacher training over the course of a year. And so I would pay in monthly installments, and I think I spent all of my extra disposable income on my yoga teacher training for the whole course of a year. So it was a real, probably not the best idea. I'm not sure I'd recommend people to do that, but at the time I was just feeling so called to do it that honestly I don't even think twice. It sounds a lot crazier now that I look back on it, whereas when I was doing it, it just seemed like the right thing to do. From there, when I finished my yoga teacher training, me and my boyfriend had the opportunity to move out here to Dubai, at which stage I made the decision to no longer do my corporate teaching job and decided to go full-time as a freelance yoga teacher, which was obviously quite a risky decision, but I feel like I have been able to learn so much about teaching yoga as a career, and I've made lots of mistakes and lots of things have gone right and wrong, and I feel like I can really share all of that with you here now. So I'm very excited to dive into this. So let's check what your questions were. Okay, diving into the first questions, all the questions are on my phone, so bear with, is how do you find what type of yoga that you want to teach? It's not quite worded like that, but I think that's what it means. So how do you find the type of yoga that you want to teach? And I think this is probably actually one of the easiest parts. Go to lots of classes. If you're even thinking about doing a yoga teacher training, I would have thought you've been to quite a few classes already. If not, you should. Go and try classes, go and see what types of yoga you enjoy, because there are so many different types. So some teach training specialize in vinyasa yoga, some teach training specialize in yin yoga or hatha yoga or ashtanga. And I think it's really, really important that you try all of these classes, see which one you like, and then from there look for a training that is aligned with that type of yoga that you enjoy, would be my best advice for this. Another one was, how can you approach studios? Okay, I think this is a really, really good point, because I think when you first qualify as a yoga teacher, you're thinking a lot about wanting to get into studios, wanting to get that practice teaching, wanting to build up maybe a bit of a community. And the best advice I can give for getting into studios would be to become a part of their community. So you need to go and practice with them and see if those studios actually are the right fit for you first. Because I know when I first moved out to Dubai, when I was starting as a full-time yoga teacher, I had sort of narrowed down the yoga studios I thought I would enjoy being at, that seemed to match my energy. But sometimes when I went to them in person, it wasn't quite the same as I thought it would feel. So then actually, instead of wasting my time trying to secure a spot at those studios, I was then thinking, well, actually, I want to find a studio that's really aligned with me first, because then the feeling would hopefully be mutual. So find a studio that you enjoy, become a part of their community, and then from there, I would always say the best thing to do is ask to go on the cover list. So speak to whoever's in charge, whether it be the studio manager, whether it be whoever's at reception, just say, are you looking for any cover teachers? Because quite often studios are looking for cover teachers, even if they're not looking for new teachers. The one thing I would say is, if you do, and if they say, yes, we will put you down as a cover teacher, when you eventually get a call to cover a class, this is advice that is probably a little bit controversial, but I can say it because I did it. When you get that call, try your very, 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 very best to be there. And I know this will be really, really hard if you have like a corporate job, or you are working full-time as it is, and say, example, they ask you to teach at 11 a.m. on a Friday. But I think at that stage, you really need to sit with, how much do I want this? How much do I want to be doing yoga full-time? If you don't want to do it full-time, it's no biggie, right? But you really have to sit with, this is a move for my future, or this is a move for me right now, and what is actually feeding my highest self. And I know that that was a decision I made. There were definitely a few times I called into work sick so I could go and cover a class, and it was those classes that ended up getting me regular classes in a studio at a time I could do, not in the time where I had to skype off work. But I think it's really, really important that you sit with, how much do you want this? And from how much do you want this, what are you willing to do for it? Because the more seriously you take this, the more seriously you will be taken. And I do think you get out as much as you put in. It has to be said that you do get out as much as you put in. So hard truth there. But if you're offered a cover class, try your very best to be there, because the more you prove reliable, the more likely they are to call you again. And as you continue being reliable, you're going to be the first person they want to call when they've got a regular slot going. So that is what I would recommend. Next question, private clients or studio classes? I think this depends on who you are as a teacher. So obviously private clients are higher paying, without a doubt. So more private clients would mean that you in theory do a little bit less work for the same amount of energy expenditure. However, I think that you really have to sit with what's right for you. I know for me that my focus actually isn't with private clients. I really enjoy holding space for group asana classes, yoga classes, and the only opportunity I currently have for private clients is with my soul coaching, and that is me working one-to-one, not just on a yoga asana basis, but also on a really spiritual and deep healing basis. And I much prefer working one-on-one in that way, whereas just a one-on-one asana class for me personally. And that is just what my intuition really sat me with. But for you, you may find that you really enjoy teaching private clients, you don't love teaching group classes quite as much. So I think it's important to sit with it and decide what you prefer, basically. Okay, the next question is like, I feel like a juicy one. I feel like this is what everyone wants to know, is how do you make the transition from a corporate job to a full-time yoga teacher? Send help. Okay, I feel you. I feel like I was looking for all of the answers to this as well. I think first things first, what I have to say is that there is no right or wrong way to do this. The way I did it will not necessarily be the way that you're meant to do it. My path may not look the same as your path. You may find that you leave your job to do yoga full time and end up doing something completely different that is so aligned with your higher self. So I think it's really important to know that there's not just one way, and everyone's path is going to look so incredibly different. But that being said, I do think it's so possible. So here is a few of the advice tips, I guess, I would give for wanting to make the transition from a full-time corporate job to being freelance. So what I would say is, first things first, is you need to really sit with this. You need to be sure this is actually what you want to do. Because in all honesty, being a yoga teacher full-time, it's a job, it's business. It's not all airy-fairy floaty stuff. And I think that sometimes that's a misconception of, oh, I just get to be a yoga teacher, it's so easy, like I can just float around and teach yoga and have a really calm and peaceful life. Yes, but also no, you are going to have to be business savvy. You are going to have to think about your accounts. You're going to have to think about taxes, depending on where you are in the world. You're going to have to think about marketing. And if you're not the sort of person who feels like they would be motivated enough to work for themselves, or you don't feel like making ends meet every month and having that responsibility on your shoulders to find where your income streams are coming in from is right for you, it may actually not be your path to do yoga full time. That sounds really harsh, but I have to say it because I think it's really important that we think about the fact that it is going to turn something that is a passion into a job. And I think that's great. I did it and it's worked so beautifully. And I think that for a lot of people that is the right path. But I also think it's important to sit with, do I love this as a hobby? Or am I ready for this to be my business? And it's going to be a business at the end of the day. I think a lot of yoga teachers shy away from calling themselves businesses, but they are. I'm a freelance business, right? So I think you really need to even sit with how that feels to be running your own business. From there, if you've sat with that and you're like, nope, this is exactly what I want, I feel so called to this, practical tips would be start saving. Start saving, because in that first sort of transition from your corporate to full-time yoga teaching, there is going to be a bit of a lull, and there's going to be some time where your schedule's not quite full and you're trying to fill your schedule with things, and you want to make sure that money is not an issue. And the reason for this is because if you haven't got savings to sort of feed yourself and pay for your rent and whatever it may be, you are going to plummet into a lack mindset. And when we talk, money mindset is a huge thing, but when you're in a lack mindset, you come into that desperation, right? You're giving out desperate energy, and that energy is not going to be attractive to clients. It's not going to be attractive to students. It's not going to be attracting the sort of energy you would want to fill your schedule with. So you need to make sure that you have enough savings put aside. I'd say probably for 3 months. That was about the amount I had. I think I left my job in August, got my final pay in September, and I had enough money to get me to the end of the year to give me some time to build things up. And that worked really well because it stopped me from slipping into this real lack mentality, because I could still come in with this abundant mindset of, I have enough to live, I'm here to see if this will work, right? So I think saving is really, really important. I also think it's important to do a rough business plan, and there are so many videos on YouTube about how to do a business plan, but think about your niche, and we can dive into this in a whole nother video, but think about your niche, think about who you're here to serve, think about where you might find them, think about what kind of classes you want to offer, think about realistically how much money you need to be making. So when I left my corporate job, I wrote down the amount of money I needed to make the exact amount I made in my corporate job. Now, I was a teacher, so I wasn't making loads of money. So it was not too daunting to see how I could make the same amount I was making in my corporate job. If you're in a higher paid corporate job, it may mean that you need to think about what it is that you're willing to lower your income to at first. And I don't think you have to be a poor yoga teacher by any means, but I think at first you have to think about what would be your sort of minimum income to keep you going. And when I say keep you going, pay rent, food, buy yourself things when you want them, pay for your gas. Like, I'm not talking living in complete lack. I'm talking to maintain the majority of your lifestyle that you have now. Obviously, if you're buying designer bags every other weekend, maybe that could slide at the beginning. But other than that, I'd say that you need to figure out that number of what it is you need to earn in order to sustain yourself. And from there, I sat down and thought, how many studio classes would I need for this? How many privates might I need for this? How many corporates? What would I charge for this? Da, 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 da. So thinking about where exactly that money could come from and really conceptualizing, okay, if I need 5 or 6 or 7 corporate classes, or let's say 7 studio classes a week to make ends meet, that's probably not enough. But in theory, if I need 7 studio classes to make ends meet a week, then I need to know, okay, I've got 5, I need 2 more. I need to go and find those 2 more somewhere. Hopefully that makes sense. So having savings, budgeting, putting together a business plan, and also putting that goal income of how much you need to be making to make this sustainable. From there, I would also say that once you've done the sort of more practical things of deciding on your niche, doing your business plan, deciding on your budget and your savings, from there you can begin to go into your marketing. So make sure that you are marketing yourself however it is you choose to, whether it be through social media or some other way, and make sure you can afford to market. Obviously, a lot of social media is free, which is great, but just make sure you're considering how much you would actually maybe want to put aside to pay for marketing. So I know for me, I had branding done, and that actually comes into the next question, so I'll come back to that. But just think about all of the costs involved to set yourself up the way you would want to. I would also say that, coming back to the logical ones just for a moment, is to make sure that you also have multiple streams of income. So make sure that you're thinking of all the ways that yoga teachers can make money. It's not just studio classes, you can do retreats, you can do events, you can do online. Think of all of these different ways in which you can begin to make money, because diversifying your income as a freelancer is key. It's absolutely key, because there's kind of no point being a freelancer if all of your income comes from one place. You may as well be in a corporate job. Once you have done the more practical side of things, I think there is also a really huge part of this that comes from connecting to your intuition. Yeah, there are all of these businessy things that we can do, but if you go and look up business plan for a yoga teacher, they all look exactly the same. But I think you'd find it really hard to find 2 full-time yoga teachers that make their income in the same way. And this is because these 2 full-time yoga teachers have completely different paths. So for example, you may find that when you really sink into your intuition, you're feeling called to do yoga and something else. Maybe it's yoga and Reiki, maybe it's yoga and sound healing, or whatever it may be. You may find that you're being guided to other areas to add to your practice. And I think you really need to tap into your intuition and see where it's guiding you, because sometimes our logical mind has a really rigid idea of the way things need to work in order to be successful, and that blocks our intuition. And your path is so unbelievably perfect, and it will guide you to where you need to be, whether it be the end destination, actually be a yoga teacher, or something so much better for you. But you need to be tapped into your intuition for this. And this is something I talk about with my one-to-one soul coaching clients an awful lot. We really dive into their purpose, and when you are connected to the intuition and connected to this higher self and this purpose, you are so guided. You're going to be so held. Things are going to work out but you need to find that intuition, you need to find that connection, and it is so unbelievably important. I also think a general bit of advice that I would give is if you're not manifesting, you should be. Manifesting is magic. Diving into all of these deeply energetic practices like clearing your chakras when there are blockages in the chakras, and manifestation and money mindset, and all of these things that are becoming slowly more popular, these are magic and they will shift so much. And I know that this is something that I chat about again with my one-to-one clients. We dive into finding the manifestation techniques that work for them and really taking the time to embody these deeply yogic practices of working with the chakra system, working with the power of vibration, because this can shift everything. And the power of manifestation and working with vibration is huge. So if that's not something you're doing yet, dive into this, because it's going to guide you. I can promise it will guide you. You just need to fully embrace it. And as always, if you want guidance on that, I'm here, send me a message. But if you aren't already manifesting, if you aren't diving into that side of things, you need to. Like, no question about it, you need to. And I think also, final point on this has been a real divey in question. I think also that you need to really honor the fact that it would be a crying shame to run your business as a yoga teacher in the same way you've seen corporate businesses be run. You're allowed to follow your intuition. Why would you be leaving a corporate job just to do the same thing, just to act in the same really logical, masculine way? You're allowed to follow your intuition. You're allowed to trust your gut. You're allowed to really channel this higher self energy. So, okay, I'm ending that question. I'm leaving it there. The next question is, how important is branding for new yoga teachers? Okay, I think this depends who you ask. If you ask me, I'm very particular about my branding. The reason that I am so particular about my branding is probably because I'm a Taurus rising. No, I'm kidding, but I am the sort of person that is very into aesthetics. I like the way that things look and I want things to look beautiful. Other than that, other than it being a personal thing for me, another reason I am so particular about my branding is because it gives me the power to create a first impression. So when I am putting my Instagram, for example, the first thing that people probably see about me, whether it be they're looking to see who's teaching the class tonight, or whether it be a studio looking at my Instagram to get a feel for me, which does happen. Your Instagram is basically your CV as a yoga teacher, which is a bit, I know it's very controversial, but let's use it to our advantage if that's the reality of the world. Your Instagram gives you the power, or your branding, whether it be Instagram or something else, gives you the power to dictate how people see you. And not in a really like dictatory way, but I use my branding as a way to express the way that I am. So when you come onto my social media, you get a feel for who I am straight away. You get a feel for the fact that I'm really feminine. You get a feel for the fact of how much I love yoga, how soft I am, how passionate I am. And that's really what I want to come across, because then my students or whoever's looking at my branding feels like they know me. They make a connection with me immediately because I've portrayed myself in a way that's really true to the way I teach. So I'm very creative, I'm very intuitive, I'm very fluid, I'm very soft, and that really comes across in my branding, and it comes across in my social media, and it's all really, really purposeful. It's not by accident. So really thinking about how you want people to feel and then putting that into your branding, which is why I think sometimes having someone help you with your branding can be amazing, because you can say, I want people to feel this way, and then they can find you the colors and the fonts and just keep everything really beautiful and cohesive. Obviously, this is something that will resonate with some people more than others. So if you're like, branding is just not my thing, that's okay. I'm not going to say it's the only way. I do just think that it is a really powerful tool, and if you use it properly, it can help you to make connections very effectively. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Ooh, I love this. Okay, This next question is about finding your voice as a yoga teacher. Wow, okay. First things first is I often get asked this question actually, and usually my answer is you don't need to find your voice. Because usually when people ask me this question, they're asking me in the sense of, how do I find this really calm yoga teacher voice? And you do not need a voice like that. I actually think that's really quite inauthentic. And I think that's actually, don't go putting on a yoga teacher voice, because I think that a lot of students probably find that really annoying. I know that I would. But if we look into a slightly different facet of finding your voice, I think it's finding what you're here to share, more importantly. And I really, really love this topic because I feel like you have never lost your voice. You've never lost it. It is deep within there. And when it comes to finding your voice, it is sharing authentically from your heart. It's being vulnerable and it's letting people in, because your softness is what is going to make people feel connected to you. It's what's going to make people feel like they know you and they love you. And I also think that it's a really beautiful way to then incorporate things into your classes. So for me, I plan my classes around themes, and my voice is able to then shine through because I plan around themes that mean something to me. And your energy when you're teaching about something you're passionate about will shine through, just like probably mine is now because I'm so passionate about this, but your energy will shine through. So it's not about finding your voice, it's tapping into who you authentically are. And trust me, it's hard. I know. I had a long time where I didn't know who I was. But I think once you really tap into who you are and allow that to shine through, and don't be afraid for people to see you, for everything that you are, that's when you can begin to find your voice as a teacher and really help to inspire and help with healing when it comes to others as well, because through sharing your voice, you make it easier for someone else, which is just the most beautiful thing. And I get asked this question so much that I've recently been considering actually doing an online masterclass on this, because it's something I'm so passionate about. And I have quite a few activities that I do with my in-person teacher training groups that I think could be really beneficial for other yoga teachers, but also just for anyone who is in a position where they want to share their voice. So if that sounds like something you would be interested in, or you feel like you'd benefit from, comment below and let me know. But I've got it's on my ideas list, so I'm very seriously considering doing a Finding Your Voice masterclass. Right, moving on to the next question, tea break. Do you recommend teaching community classes on beaches and in parks? I would say that yes. I think this depends where you are. I think my general advice for any kind of teaching that you do ever is to remember that it needs to be an energy exchange. I feel like we're talking an awful lot about money mindset here, but remember that energy exchange is huge and everything operates with energy. So whether you are teaching your best friend or a stranger or community classes, there needs to be a two-way movement of energy. So what I mean by this is don't do things for free. And I don't necessarily mean you need to be paid in money. Maybe you teach them and they bring brownies for afterwards. Maybe you teach a friend in exchange for them helping you with your marketing, whatever it may be. But I think that once you fall into a bit of a trap of teaching yoga for free, I think first things first is you don't build that confidence because it's not been an energy exchange there. I think second, those clients that you've been teaching for free will never become paying clients, because when people have, I mean, never say never, but it's very unlikely that they're going to become paying clients, because when people have received something for free, it's very hard for them to see the value of it for more than that, because they're like, well, this is the same thing, but you gave it to me for free before. Whereas if you value yourself for what you're worth, you're going to have people who are far more reliable. People will see your value, and I think that it's really, really, really important. So teach wherever, do as many community classes as you would like, but I also think make sure there's an energy exchange. Oh, this one is really sweet, and I feel for this. This is I feel like no one takes me seriously. How can I change that? I'm really sorry. That is like the worst feeling ever, first of all, if when you feel like no one takes you seriously. I think I've been there as well, where I feel like I've been having to prove myself. It's actually something I'm moving through at the moment, but I know how this feels of feeling a bit like a fluffy, airy-fairy yoga teacher and no one's taking you seriously. I think first things first is, do you take yourself seriously? And I know that's a really annoying question, but really sitting with, do I take myself seriously as a yoga teacher? Am I treating it like a business? Whether it be a small business, a part-time business, a little business. Am I treating myself like a professional? Do I treat myself like a business? Am I actively going out and doing things? So when I mean actively going out and doing things, people are going to take you much more seriously when you are acting like a business. When you have a business plan, when you have an Instagram or marketing dedicated to this, when you show up really determined to do this and show everyone how passionate you are about this, people immediately take you a little bit more seriously. And I also think not being afraid to step into that role of being a leader as well. And I think that sometimes we think as yoga teachers, we just have to be really, really nice and not have anyone dislike us, which of course would be great, but it's not reality, right? I think in order for people to take us seriously, sometimes we really have to stand into our own power and sort of sit with, I'm a yoga teacher, but I'm also gonna run my own little business, whether it be part-time or for fun. It's still going to be a business. And I think that really helped me when I sat with, why do I feel like I'm constantly having to prove myself, or why do I feel like people aren't taking me seriously? Am I taking myself seriously, or am I keeping myself small and not allowing myself to grow into the person I want to be? Vision boarding is the best for this. Who is she? Who do you want to be? Put her on a vision board and start channeling that energy. That's actually something I'm doing at the moment as well. And it's such a good activity. I do it with my one-to-one coaching clients too, because I do just think vision boarding is life-changing. I think it really helps, especially people who are visual, to step into that energy, just the intention behind it. So yeah, I love vision boarding. So I would definitely recommend that for anyone who is feeling like they're not being taken seriously, who is. Channel that higher self into a vision board and start showing up as her. Okay, next question. How do you prep your CV? So for yoga teaching, we don't usually have a CV. We have like a teaching profile, and what I would suggest you put on this teaching profile is a picture of you, a little blurb about what your philosophy is. So I usually do like a paragraph of what yoga means to me. So for example, my paragraph might look like, my name's Mara, I'm a really passionate yoga teacher. I truly believe that yoga can be so deeply transformative and healing, and I feel like it's my purpose to bring this to people. My classes are fluid, creative, and dynamic. I'm really passionate about helping my students connect to their intuition on their mats. I'm really passionate about creating a safe space where my students can grow and heal. And this is why I teach these styles of yoga, and I would really love to be able to do that wherever you are. And then underneath that, I would put where I'd done my yoga teacher training. I would put any relevant other things. So whether it's a yin training or a sound healing training, whatever that might be. I wouldn't say that you need to put on any corporate experience you have because it's irrelevant. But then after that, I would put on any teaching experience you currently have. Now, listen to me very carefully. You have teaching experience. If you have done a yoga teacher training, I guarantee you have teaching experience. If you have ever taught a friend one-to-one, that can be put down as private yoga teaching experience, right? So be creative with this CV and make sure you're actually honoring all of the things that you've done to make yourself look really, really as amazing as you are, basically. Next question. How do you incorporate yourself into classes? I think this also goes back to the question on finding your voice. So if you want me to talk more about this, let me know and I will put together that Finding Your Voice masterclass, because I don't know, I'm feeling called to do it. So I think it's probably going to come out of this video in the end anyway. Oh, I like this one. So does every sequence you teach have to be different every time? No, but yes. So I don't think you need to spend hours and hours and hours planning a completely different class every time. I think that you can make a class feel very different. So I could teach you the exact same class, but make it feel very different depending on what my theme was. And I'm really, really passionate about planning classes with themes. And I don't mean themes like a peak pose. I actively don't plan with peak poses because I think they have the ability to fall short. I mean, maybe one class I'm teaching you and my theme is surrender. And I'm talking about letting go and surrendering to the practice. I might teach that exact same class, so all of the exact same poses to you the next day, but my theme might be own your power. And I will be drawing your attention to the areas of your body which are being asked to become powerful and be strong. And those classes may be exactly the same or at least very similar, but they will feel really, really different. So whilst I don't think that you need to plan a completely new class every time, I think that having different themes to work with is really fantastic. And for new yoga teachers, I always recommend the book Teaching Yoga Beyond Poses, because it's just such a fantastic book. Short and quick answer. Okay. Oh, how many more have we got? How are we doing? Okay. The next one is your top 5 pieces of advice for new yoga teachers. Okay. Top 5 pieces of advice for new yoga teachers would be to, I think, like, share your voice would be a big one. I know I'm talking about your voice all the time, but be vulnerable, share your story where possible. I think the next would be don't worry about being perfect. You do not need to be perfect. And I think this is a huge one. Something that someone once said to me that really resonated with me was, your mistakes might be someone else's medicine. So you muddling up your lefts and rights in a class might be exactly what your student needed to hear, because they've realized, oh, not even my yoga teacher is perfect. She's made a mistake and that's made me feel so much more human. And it's actually exactly what I needed today to make myself feel a bit better. So don't worry about perfection, because your mistakes can be someone else's medicine. The third one would be, don't lose your own practice. Such a big one. Your practice comes first. If you are wanting to teach from a really authentic space, your practice needs to come first. It's why you became a yoga teacher to begin with, because you loved your practice. So don't let that slip. And I think even on top of that, also don't rush your practice. Don't feel like, oh, I'm a yoga teacher, I have to be able to do a headstand, because that's not true. And I think that it would be a crying shame to rush your journey, your personal yoga journey and your personal process for the sake of teaching, because it's not going to make you a better teacher. What makes you a fantastic teacher is sharing from an authentic space and sharing how much you truly love the practice. So yes, don't rush the process and continue with your own practice. I guess that's 2. So then just one more would be follow your intuition. Follow your intuition. I talk about this so much, but this practice of yoga is one for connecting to your stillness and your intuition. So follow your intuition, it will guide you. And if you don't know how to follow your intuition, start to dive into practices that connect you with your intuition, whether it be meditation, journaling, pulling oracle cards. There are so many ways in which you can begin to tap into that intuition, and it will guide you on this journey. So trust your intuition, connect to your intuition, because it's going to be your biggest and greatest tool as a yoga teacher. I think we'll go for one more question, because this video is so long already, but last one is how to start teaching online. And this feels super relevant, because if you have been in my online space for any time, I have recently just launched my online membership for yoga, which is called Soulshala, where I share lots of yoga classes. I think we have over 70 classes on there now, but I also share sound healing and yoga philosophy videos and how to live an aligned life. So I'm really loving diving into the online yoga space. I think my biggest advice for how to start teaching online would just be to start. And I think that can feel really, really, really scary at first. You're like, what if no one shows up? Just start, because you know what? The first time no one will show up probably, and if they do, that's amazing. But chances are that the first couple of times there might be no one there. But that's the worst that's gonna happen. And once that happens once, we're no longer scared of it. Trust me, it's happened to me before. I've done something and no one's been there and I've been like, oh my gosh, this is awful. But I recorded the class, I posted it wherever I was posting it, whether it be to an online membership or YouTube or wherever it was, or I sent it in a link to people and let them watch it later, and that was fine. And once that happened once, I was no longer quite as scared of no one showing up, because it doesn't start from everything. You're not going to have 10 people in your class at the beginning. You might not even have one, and that is so okay. The best thing you can do is start, whether it be through Zoom, whether it be through having an online membership, whether it be through YouTube. I just really, really recommend that you start. On top of that, I would also say with teaching online, just consider that what equipment you might need. So for example, for me teaching online, I have microphones, I have a camera, I have ring lights, I have a studio space in my house now, which was, we had to get rid of some furniture. I actually posted a video on that, so feel free to go and watch that video if you want to. But I think it should just be said that you will need to invest something into your equipment. But once you have the equipment and you're sure it's something you really, really want to do and you feel really passionate about it, just go for it, because it's going to start from zero, but if you keep going, it will happen. And it's not about if it happens, it's just when. So if you stay consistent and if you keep going, it will all pan out the way it's meant to. Whew. Okay, that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them below. Feel free to message me on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram if you don't already. My username is Amara Thompson. But I really hope that you've been able to take value from this video, because as I said, this is something I'm so passionate about, and I really wish I had been able to find more information on this when I was first looking to start being a yoga teacher full time. So I really hope you've taken lots from this. If you want to connect in any other ways, come and find me on my online yoga membership. It's always linked below. If you are interested in really diving into your intuition to help you on this journey to full-time yoga teaching, or just your higher self, because eventually that's where you're going. This is exactly what I talk about in my one-to-one soul coaching program, Mindful Magic. So I will also link that below. And if you think that it's something that you're feeling called towards and you really want to dive into deep intuition and healing and expanding into this person you're meant to be, pop me a message, fill out the questionnaire on my website, and I'll get in touch with you, because I would absolutely love to guide you through that journey to this highest version of yourself as well. But other than that, I am going. Thank you so much for watching. I am sending you so much love, and I will see you in my next